Hey guys, in this Bad to Glad video, we're going over Garf's Prot Warrior. Now, I don't know a ton about Prot Warrior. I have one, I have a Warrior, so we'll be switching over there to show you what certain abilities do, just so that you're aware in case you run into one. But this is a match with him as a Prot Warrior, with Arms Warrior, OK Crutney, and Garbo, who is Mick, on the Mistweaver. And they're up against an Ellie Balanced Druid Holy Paladin, which is going to be pretty scary for them because if you think about it, everything this team does cannot be dispelled. And they don't, you know, Garf's team doesn't have any purge, they don't have anything, so the Elemental's Hex will not be able to be dispelled. Any type of magical stuns like Hodge or Capstun will not be able to be dispelled from the healer through like a S-Priest Mass Dispel or something like that. And then what else? Cyclone cannot be there's nothing they can do about that. There's nothing they can give to Garbo when he is root beamed if that happens. So there's a lot of things here that could go wrong from a CC perspective. And if I think about how this team wants to play, and I played this comp very often, is they want to set up in a triangle. The Paladin's going to go in for stuns. They're going to do setups off root beams, off root beam caps, or using Hammer of the Justice, 5 seconds, 6 second stun from Paladin, and to cause a lot of pressure and to synchronize their bursts together if they're playing in comps together. Now, Garf is now, going back, so that's their strategy. Now, Garf's strategy, I watched the video already, but my thought on their perspective is they're playing a Prot team. That means assuming that Prot doesn't do the most damage in the game. They want to be focusing on stopping their goes, prolonging the game, and running them out of cooldowns and abilities and countering them. So at every turn, especially because they have a lot of CC, they want to stop that and let OK Crutney go ham with his Mortal Strike on that Arms Warrior, and also just the overall pressure from an Arms Warrior is very good. Garf has a lot of things. He's frag. He has a lot of abilities that counter goes on his teammates, reducing damage, soaking damage, absorbing the next hit, mass spell reflect, AoE slow. He has a Stormbolt stun. He has a fear. He has a lot of different utility options that he's bringing to his team. So what if I didn't already watch this, what would I expect them to go? I would have expected them to play very close to each other. Probably pillar a bunch because they don't want to necessarily be out in the open. They want to force the enemy to come to them, or at least maybe start in the open but then drag them to a pillar, because then they can line of sight certain abilities like Incarnation by the Druid, etc., etc. I don't want to talk too much, but my strategy expectation for them, if I saw this into this, would be that they would train either the Elemental Shaman or probably the Balanced Druid because of the amount of CC that could come out of that. Or even go for the healer, which sounds strange, but the amount of utility that these two melee have on top of a Holy Paladin could make their uptime pretty much a really, really long time. Storm Bolting to stop CC, Spell Reflecting from Garf, a lot of different things that can make him really annoying. Now, he's not a Prot Paladin, but it's still pretty good. We're going to go into the gameplay. Garf's also a panda. You can see his panda racial, and we're going to see how it goes. Okay, so they're basically going to get ready to play, and you can hear them talking a little bit. But with this team, too, when they use their cooldowns, they need to be monitoring for that because that's where a lot of damage is going to be coming up. Stormkeeper, Incarnation, Melee Wings. They can do things like saving CC for these specific times. Like when Melee Wings, if he's Melee Wings, which I know he is, happens, maybe he needs to have a fear because then you'll get a trinket. Or this is when Panda, he needs to get, Garbo needs to instantly incap them. Using that instant CC is a really, really, really big deal. And because he's Garf is a panda, he should be using that to stop CC. Now they're coming out of the gates. Their strategy is to go on the Ellie, which does leave the Balanced Druid open to CC. Now if he does it, that's a good thing. We see Garbo is behind the pillar, which is actually really great. He gets hodged right away, which is expected. That's the Paladin ran across the field. One of the things that Garf and Rutney could have done is they could have played a little bit of defense. They could have said, hey, if this Paladin comes across the field, we're going to smack him. They're going to stun him and start hitting him really hard. Save Mass Spell Reflect for when he tries to get Cycloned or Hex, and then you're already on the pillar. The Paladin made it to Garbo's pillar. They could have piled on him there and hung out at the pillar. Because what we see is as soon as that Hodge lands, then the Druid pops Incarnation for him. And this is when Garf's going to use Spell Reflect. He's going to use Mass Spell Reflect about here. We can see the Druid's position in a pretty good way to get a Root Beam CC out of that. There's a lot of pressure coming up from Rutney. Rutney is putting a ton of pressure out, so is Garf, onto this Ellie Shaman, which is great. I mean, their stun on the Ellie. Now, because they're both running Stormbolt, they could be CCing at the same exact time, which would cover each other. So in this case right here, one of them probably it's fine if they stunned Aunt Shami, and the other one should have stunned the Druid, so no Cyclones could happen. Luckily, I don't think there's any Cyclones that happen here, but that's something, okay, actually they do CC both, but that's something where you can force pressure by not letting them peel at all. Now they pile on and they start pounding. Garbo is not really in trouble. He's in a pure CC. He's kind of behind the pillar anyway. It's perfectly fine. Garbo comes out. I'm not sure why Garbo leaves the pillar, probably because the Paladin's scary, and if he had rep, it would have been really scary. And here's something great. They get Aunt Shami, the shaman, into a tough pickle, and he uses that Astral Swiftness. I give these guys some points for putting the pressure on those guys when they pop Incarn. Another alternative would be to hide on Incarn. As soon as they see Garbo stunned, as soon as they see Incarn used, they could have ran. They could have all like went back behind the pillar. They both have heroic leap. All leap behind the pillar and just hide there. You know what I mean? I give them a star here because they really said, no, F you, Incarn. We're going to put the pressure on you. You're going to have to start playing defensive. This Boomkin's going to have to do things other than DPS if he wants his LA to live. He uses wall. It's totally fine. And they start bumping up the pressure. So one Tiqqle star for you guys. The Boomkin didn't really do anything here. You did use Fear into a leg sweep. If you do back it up a little bit, this is something, you know, because there's two warriors, there's diminishing returns to really worry about. Now, at some point along here, you know, they came out in the open, they forced a lot of pressure, and then, I mean, you can see that the Paladin here by St. Gladius has a 50% reduction of the CC that's going to go on him if it's the same tree as the Fear, right? So we see Garf go here, he's just doing damage, he's doing damage, and he sees that, like, okay, could be kind of a pickle. We see a Fear be popped. Oh, that's by Rutney. Okay, that's by Rutney. And it's like, that was a very small fear. Your fear on a warrior is actually a pretty long cooldown. If we just look in game really quick, a shout is a 1.5 minute cooldown. That's actually a pretty long CC because it lasts 8 seconds. I mean, it's a pretty long one, so you got to be a little bit careful with that. They're getting one ding on that. Watching DR, it's definitely something that is really, really important, especially when you're playing two of the same exact class. I've done that with double enhance, double Ellie. It's very, very important. You guys can do it. Just be careful about that. That's the highest skill level too. So I definitely recommend, you know, be careful of those DRs, especially on something that's 1.5 minutes long. So that's something. And now immediately out of that, we're going to see Garbo's going to come in and he's going to capitalize by getting a stun, which is great. But we see an instant trinket sack. That's the one sack Holy Paladins have, so it's fine. We see Garf gets a style point here because he reflects the Balanced Druid Cyclone. So good style points to you, Garf. That's pretty awesome. Now we see the Paladin coming in for melee wings. This would be a great opportunity for them to counter the Paladin with some type of CC. We can see he's DR'd on a lot of different things. If this is a great time to use a Fear to counter that cooldown with something else. He doesn't have Trinket. He would have to sit the entire duration of that Fear, meaning would pretty much counteract one of his biggest cooldowns in the entire game, which is his wings. So now, you know, we see the guys, they're still out here. They dropped a War Banner that's great for reducing the duration of crowd control. Super good. You know, Garf is just kind of, he's staying on the Boomkin. Rutney is staying on the Ellie. Maybe it would be worthwhile to be on both, but to be honest, it's probably a good thing Garf is splitting because Garf is going to get a ton of these interrupts onto this Boomkin. And you can see a lot of different pressure here. The other thing I wanted to mention was that when the Ellie used his defensive cooldown, it probably didn't make sense to continue focusing him. It probably, because he was so low, and I doubt he's going to die that early in the game. Maybe he could have, but once you use that defensive cooldown, they really should have swapped to the Boomkin, who was in Incarn. Maybe they could have forced him to go Bear, and now the enemy team's getting zero pressure, and they're able to switch it up. You definitely do not want to hit into defensive cooldowns if you definitely don't think they're going to die, and that was definitely a case. So here, we can see a little bit of an overlap, so I'm going to go back it up. They're both going on the Boomkin, and then you see, you know, kind of both warriors go, and they both, it's actually kind of adorable. These guys have been playing together so long, I know it, that they both are thinking the same thing, and they both Storm Strike the Paladin together. So you see he gets Storm Strike for, you know, that just completely overlaps, and it's not really worth it. What they could have done instead, and that's going to be, it's going to be one ding for the boys, is they could have Storm Strike two things, and I would have recommended doing, you know, I guess it really doesn't matter in this case, the healer and something else will force a ton of pressure, because if you stun the healer and then you stun maybe the Boomkin, or you stun the Ellie in this case because Rutney is focusing him, then you're going to get a lot of pressure, especially with Garf stopping any type of CC. Now, You can see that Garbo just got root beamed and he got hexed. It's a pretty big overlap by the other team. Not sure if he has Trinket up at this point, but basically he's just kind of chilling. Everyone's kind of okay, but you see Rutney's health, it's kind of cut out here, but it's getting way, it's getting down and down and down. Now Garf has some abilities he can use for his teammates. Mass Spell Reflect is up, you can see it there. He also has, what's the shout for HP? I forget, Rallying Cry. So he has some things that he can use, a commanding shout. So, you know, I don't know if he's too worried right now. Usually warriors they have one really strong set of defensive cooldowns, and then after that they're toast. So the other thing Rutney could have done here, if he wanted to, is he could have ran. That's one tactic I have not seen these guys do yet, and you know, I'm not going to ding you guys for it. Is just that you haven't used Heroic Leap out of there. Like, for example, as soon as Root Beam gets placed on Garbo, you both could leap behind a pillar and say, what's up, come back here and play. I don't want to mess, you know, we're not going to play that game. So that's one thing I haven't seen you guys do. I definitely think it could be a way for you guys to reduce the amount of CC, like the pressure that's from that, but huge here's a star for Garf. Garf getting the reflection of the Cyclone onto the Boomkin again. What a sexy play. Now Garf is moving around pretty fast around the field. He's using the different movement abilities, which is he's not using Leap, but he's just using Intervene between his friendlies, which also it counts as charge to enemies. But when he does it to a friendly, he absorbs the next hit they're about to take. So that's pretty cool. The other question, I guess, for Garf is you're using shield block, which actually, you know, and I'm sure you know this, but it says if you read the tooltip, raises your shield blocking all melee attacks from you for 6 seconds. These blocks can be critical blocks. Increases shield slam damage. So I'm assuming, let me know in the comments, but I'm assuming you're using this to increase shield slam damage, which is cool. And I don't know if there's something else maybe you're taking that is increasing, you know, making this effective to magic. But my question to you is there something else you could be using in that global that would actually reduce damage? Or is this your maximum way to force pressure? Just a question for you. The other thing I know that Garf is using is Demoralizing Shout. Demoralizing Shout is a great ability. Demoralizing all, and by the way, it's instant, doesn't cost anything. Demoralizes all enemies within 10 yards, reducing the damage they do by 20% for 8 seconds. And taking this PvP talent reduces the cooldown of Demoralizing Shout by 30 seconds. Demoralizing Shout now reduces all the damage enemies deal to all targets, meaning debuffing everyone. Debuffing everyone by 20% damage. Awesome move. Awesome move. Now my question would be, if you could drag them behind the pillar, you could get that on potentially everyone, because it looks like 10 yards is actually very small. So I would challenge you, could you guys have brought them behind a pillar or dragged them back? Now, I know against caster teams it's not always possible, especially when they want to play in the open. It's just something to think about against other teams, like potentially a more rot team. This team that you're against is more of a burst team. If you could do against a more rot team, I would worry about you guys being in the open this much, like an S-Priest, Affliction Warlock team. All right, so you're stunning the Boomkin, you're doing good. You had a double stun there. You got a star for that. That was Boomkin and Holy Paladin. You don't have anything for the Cyclone. That's totally fine. You can't stop every CC in the game. And to be honest, it's perfect. It's actually better you don't, because if you guys are 100% and you know people aren't freaking out, it's better to actually soak the DR than freak out every single time. So if you guys are 100% health, let them get a full clone. Whatever. It's not the biggest deal. Now, here's this, a move that was pretty badass. You caught the Holy Paladin, who is clearly coming in to stun Garbo. Now what I would say is, let's go back here for a sec. When you go in, again, the DR is there. So was there something else you could have done to maybe make that CC less duration? Did it need to be stopped? Was it okay? Maybe Rutney could have, as soon as he saw this happening, maybe he could have ran away. Or could you have used Mass Spell Reflect? I know it was up in 1 second, so probably not. So you did fear to stop it. That's a good play. Just challenging you. Your brain. Now the other thing that's going on here is Lightning Lasso from the Ellie Shaman. I guess I didn't see him use a whole lot of that, but that's okay. Now this Boomkin is just laying into him. These guys are in the middle. They're just PvEing. That's just what they do. So what's happening here is basically you guys are kind of setting up a go, and this is something I haven't seen you guys do a ton, but it's Rutney. Like you can triple CC on this team pretty well, given that, and pretty directly, given that you have mostly all of its instant CC. So you can get Garbo to in-cap, and both of you to Stormbolt, so you can CC the entire team. And if you split on it, that's fine. You guys are just kind of a dampening team anyway, trying to force pressure and trying to build momentum that way. So in this case, what you do is Garbo goes in to instantly in-cap the healer, you stun the Boomkin, and Rodney should stun the Ellie. And even if you don't even go them, that's fine. Oh, and in this case, you actually got a mass spell reflection. You can see on the right side of the screen, there, you CC'd all of them. This is the most pressure you can possibly build, and you start to see the enemy guy get chunked. They have to blow trinkets, and that guy didn't even have a trinket. They couldn't get Cyclone enough, and it's super, super strong. So that was the best play, so I give you guys a huge star for that one. That was awesome. That was pretty cool, and this isn't a comp that I usually see played, but the other thing I would ask is if Garbo goes Way of the Crane, you know, if he is going that, how do you guys set up those goes? Because that go that you go with Way of the Crane needs to be punchy, and he can pump damage. So in that case, I definitely recommend trying to get that triple CC on those instant cast CCs, you know? So, you know, in that case, he could have in-cap Stormbolt, and then he's on the target with you, and you are pumping. And then you save Mass Spell Reflection out of that to stop any crowd control that's coming in. I know you did use it to stop his CC, but that's just something you line up all your instants together, pump them, reflect as cover, and then have everybody pumping the same target. And that you will get cooldowns, and you would get trinkets through doing that. Now, you're actually doing a ton of damage. At the end of the match, I don't think you can see the damage overall. It's a little grayed out. Now, for this, if you see, okay, so Rutney did almost 1 million. The Boomkin did a lot expected. Ellie did not that much, but he was trained. You did as much as the Ellie, so that's actually pretty awesome, and you did a lot of utility. Now, my question is, what is Rutney's role in this comp? Is he running a build where he can multiple Mortal Strike both DPS? Because when you're splitting and you're actually putting out a pretty good amount of pressure, you're putting out just as much pressure as the Ellie, can you get Mortal Strike on both targets? Maybe he goes sweeping strikes and he can do that. But maybe that means that they have to be grouped up. So again, maybe dragging them behind line of sight. When they pop their cooldowns, you leap back there and that's when you go. The other thing is, I'm not sure how closely the cooldowns of the other team were monitored other than Incarn. So the Ellie's cooldowns, for example, Stormkeeper, I never really saw him use it, but maybe Lasso is something you should think about. But maybe using reflections and stuff to stop or reflect that damage would also be good. Yeah, but in general, I think you guys did. I thought it was very clean. You guys applied way more pressure than I was expecting to even see in this comp, especially against the Ellie Boomkin. I was expecting them to kind of rot the crap out of you and be live lords, but when you triple CC with no trinkets, they're donezo. Now you got to think about when you triple CC, that might be your first go, because then you'll start to get trinkets. The Fear is the absolutely best CC that you have, but it's also the hardest to have around because it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. So if you could have got the trinkets first through your instant CC across and instant CC across everybody. Okay, you stun this guy, you stun this guy. I'll in-cap this guy. Okay, I'll DR stun, leg sweep out. Like that's the type of shit that I think is going to bring you guys to the next level. But anyway, I think this was a great video, and I want to thank Garf for submitting this. I'm going to tally up the pluses and the dings and the stars, and I'll put it right here. But I want to thank Garf. Thanks for sending this in. Thanks for sharing this clip with me. I'm glad I could do this. I know I don't know the most about Prot Warrior, but it's definitely more play style and decisions that I'm more talking about than exactly how to do the rotation. In general, it seems like your damage was pretty good. So that's kind of my thoughts. Rutney's mind down. He like turn off brain, chunk, chunk, chunk. Like that's the great strategy, especially against the Ellie to shut his damage down. I think it actually works better in this meta than going the Boomkin, so I do think that's the play. Paladin goes, I think, can be super strong because of Paladin's lack of defensives right now and even lack of freedoms. So that's something else to think about. So I think that kind of covers everything, guys. I want to thank everybody for watching this video. This is the part. This is one of the series of the what I'm calling the bad to glad or good to glad, whatever you want to call it. Where I'm reviewing your clips and giving you insights that I see to help you out. Now, these things, I'm not, you know, a rank 1, but these are things that I think would help you in your gameplay. And if anyone else has any suggestions for Garf, please feel free to add it in the description. We're all positive here. We're all trying to help each other. And if you have clips, send them to me in Discord. Either send me the VOD from Twitch and tell me what time to look at, like Garf did, or link me a video on YouTube that you uploaded privately, or just send me the video over email to tiqqlethis@gmail.com, and I will check it out and I'll post this video, or I can do it privately. So all that's all on the board, guys. But anyway, guys, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like this video, sub to the channel on the way out the door. Have a nice holiday.